If you're new to Asana, this beginner-friendly tutorial will walk you through the basics step by step. I'll show you exactly how to set up projects, assign tasks, and even set up automations, all while keeping everything organized and simple. But first, let's get started with signing up to our Asana account. Check out the link below to get started on that, and you can sign up using your email or even your Google account.
Now, once you have your account created, it'll prompt you to create your first project and set up your views and tasks and invite team members to that specific project. So if you want to create your first project, just click on this new project button right here, and then it's going to give you an option to either go for a blank project, use a template, or import an existing project. For now, we're going to stick with a blank project. The project that we're going to be creating is a personal portfolio website, so that's what we're going to be naming this. And then it'll ask you for your privacy. You have two options here. You could either select My Workspace, which means everyone in your workspace, everyone that you invited to your team, will have access to your new project, or you could also set it to be private only to members that you invite to this project. For now, we're going to set it as My Workspace and then click on Continue. And the next step would be to choose the views for your project. There are different options and recommendations here, but for this specific project, I think I just want a list view, a board, a timeline, and a calendar. Now, obviously, there are different benefits for each of these views depending on your use case. You might want to have a notepad of sorts or manage the workload of your team or even a Gantt chart. If you want to see more views, there are others down here. Just click on the More Views button. But for now, we'll leave it as these four and create our project. Okay, so now that we have our board created, let's focus on the list view for now. And before we go into creating tasks for our project here, we're going to add first what we call sections. Now, these sections can be anything that actually would help you stay organized with your project. It could be phases within your project. You could either group it based on who it's assigned to. You can basically create any section that you want and organize it any which way that you want. But for the purposes of this project, we're going to set the sections as phases in the development of this website. So now that I've added the sections on this project, the next thing that we're going to talk about is actually adding the tasks to this project. Now, to add a task, you can just click on this button right here or directly add them to a specific section that you've created. So for now, we're just going to add a couple of tasks here and then we'll talk about them. All right, so now that we've created different tasks for each of the sections, we're just going to talk briefly about what you can do with each of these tasks. For example, we're going to open this task, Create Website Name and Tagline. So if you click on that, you'll see here that there are different options that you can fill out. So if you have other team members working on this project, you can assign them to the specific task. Just click on this and add their name to it. If you also want to add a due date, you can click on that and assign a due date for this specific task, and you could also add it to different other projects. So if you have more projects on your Asana workspace or your Asana account, you can add this specific task to be linked to other projects. There are also these things called dependencies, wherein, for example, this specific task would be dependent on another task. For example, I select this Create Website Logo task. So this means that this cannot be completed if this Create Website Logo task is not completed yet. So these two tasks are dependent on each other. The best use case for this is if you have a project that is dependent on previous other tasks, and you can see the blockers for those specific tasks clearly without having to fiddle around and figure out why this task is not progressing properly. Aside from that, you could also add a description with rich formatting or even use Asana AI to help you write out the description. You could also add links and other code blocks to that. And below that, you could also add subtasks. So for example, for this Create Website Name and Tagline, we're going to add a subtask named Website Name, and then another one, which is Website Tagline. So now we have two subtasks for this specific task. So this is quite helpful if your task is broad in its scope and needs to be chopped up to smaller, different subtasks to help you stay organized and figure out what other things are pending before this main task gets completed. Below that, you also have a section to add comments if you want to add comments to this specific task. So for example, if you want to post a daily update to the status of this task, for the purposes of your other teammates, you can just add them in the comments below and click on All Activity here to show you as well the activity within this specific task. So now that we've discussed the tasks, we're going to talk about other things within this project that will help you be more organized with your task management. Up here, you will see that there are different columns: name, assignee, and due date. Now, these are the same properties that you will see here inside the task, but you could also add more if you want to add a lot more organization to your tasks. So if you click on add field, you actually can choose any of these field types like single select, multi-select, etc. Or you can choose from the library of a lot of different fields that Asana offers. There's one called estimated time, wherein you can add an estimated time to completion for this task, or you can even add a single select option that would be more like a status. Another column that would be quite helpful is if you click on show more over here, there are automatic columns that can be added, like completed on, last modified on, created by, and collaborators. It'll automatically add the name of the person who created the task, or if you selected created on, it'll automatically add the date on which the task was created. As you can see, it says today. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about, since we've mainly focused on the list view, there are other views that you have on Asana. So over here, we have board, we have timeline, and we have calendar. So if you go back to the list, and for example, we're going to add a due date for all of the other tasks here, and then we switch to the calendar view, we'll see the different due dates of the different tasks that we added on a calendar view, so that you could easily visualize on a calendar when your tasks are due, what's upcoming, or what's already been delayed or past the due date. You could also see it on a timeline view if this is something that you're more used to doing. It's a more advanced view, or you could have just a simple Kanban board of all the tasks that you have, and you can easily move it to the different sections. Now, if you notice, the board is also divided based on the different sections that you created on the list view. Switching views doesn't actually change the data that you add on Asana. It just changes how you see it. So you can switch from list view to board view to timeline or calendar, and all the data and information just stays the same. It'll just show the tasks to you in a different way. Now, going back to the list view, there's one more thing that I want to show you if you want to be a really good project manager. Is a couple of the tools that I always end up using is the filter and sort and group options. Filter is basically what it is. It filters down your task. If you have a project that has like 50 tasks, you want to filter it down to only a specific few based on specific conditions. You can do so by the filter. So for example, I want to add a filter where the due date is not today, but next week, perhaps. And the only task that will show up is the one that matches the filter, which is the due date is within the next 14 days. If I close that, or if I cancel the filter, it just removes the filter and shows all the tasks entirely without the filter being added. Now, I understand that filtering every day manually is a hassle. So what you can do is you can actually duplicate or make a copy of a specific board. For example, this list view, and I'm going to name it next 14 days. I'm going to set this to automatically be a filter for the due date to be within the next 14 days. Whenever I open this view, I no longer have to manually always apply the filter, but I can just open it and see which tasks are due within the next 14 days. If I go back to the original list view, it will show all the tasks that I have without the applied filter on. Now, as for the sort option, this actually allows you to organize how the tasks are sorted. You can sort it by the start date, due date, assignee, or alphabetical even. This becomes very useful if you want to figure out how to prioritize a task. So for example, I want to sort this to the task where the due date is nearest. If I select due date here, tasks are now sorted based on which due date is nearest. You could also save this view into a new tab, or you can save it all together for this specific view. Now, if I cancel that, it's just going to be the same way again. And same way for group, you can actually choose to group your tasks differently rather than just by sections like we did here. You can choose to group it, say, for due date, ascending, or created by. If it's created by different people, you can choose to group it like that. But sections work well for me for this kind of project, but again, feel free to customize this as you wish. And eventually, as your project grows, so will your need for these filter and sort options. So it's really great to master these kind of options early on when you're just starting out with your project. And one other great thing about Asana is its collaboration features. Now, as you've already noticed, you can add teammates to your Asana board. So just click on your project, right click and click on share project if you want to share it to a specific person. You can invite them via email or change the access settings to set it to private, or even if you're already on private, set it to My Workspace. And you can even manage the collaborators or the number of people that you have access to this project already. You could actually set it to editor, admin, commenter, or viewer, depending on your preferences. And yeah, you can invite them with their email address and select their access right from the share options. Now, if they're already on your project or if they're already on your team, you can actually also collaborate from the specific task by just opening the specific task. You can mention a specific person entirely just on the comments or on the description. You could also add them as an assigned person to that task. And you can even do so with the subtasks that you already created here. Now, there are different collaboration options with Asana, and they never fall short in helping you realize your team's potential by helping you communicate and organize projects and make sure the projects flow efficiently without any barriers in communication. And when you actually assign someone, they will get the notification immediately on their Asana accounts and their emails, depending on how their notifications are set up. They just need to click on this inbox right here where they will actually see everything that's happening within their account. So there's one other thing here called a workspace on Asana. So basically a workspace is just the highest level of hierarchy within Asana that you can collaborate on. A workspace can contain a lot of different projects, and you can invite different people to different projects or have them access to the entire workspace entirely. Now, you can also create more teams or join more teams if you want to. So basically team, workspace, projects, and then views, and then tasks. So that's how the hierarchy is with Asana. And it's very granular, it's very specific. So essentially, one other great thing about Asana is helping you stay organized with automations, lessening your kind of mental load in how to organize your task. So to do that, just go to your board, click on customize over here, and it'll show you a majority of the options that you have to customize your Asana board. So at the rules section, you can actually get started and add your first rule here. You can pick any rule from the pre-made automations. If you're using other apps, you can automatically add it to Asana to help you with your automations, for example, Slack or Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of different options for that here. For example, we're going to create this first automation, which is if the status is changed, set assignee to. So if the status is changed, we're just going to select field is changed, check if the status is set to writing, then we're going to assign it to myself. And then if we publish this rule and we go back to our website, for example, this task, I change the status to writing, automatically the rule will fire and it will automatically assign it to me based on the rule and automation that we have set. So there's a lot of different automations available on Asana that you could customize and use to help your project move smoother and to help you have more time on your hands by getting rid of the nitty-gritty and time-consuming task of organizing everything and just making sure everything moves perfectly. And there you have it. Now, although Asana does have a lot more powerful features like the insights, reporting, portfolios, and goals, and several other customization options, that is your beginner's guide to creating your Asana project and making sure that everything is organized and making sure that you can get started on whatever project that you want to start and not have to worry about missing a deadline, missing a task, or not being able to collaborate with your teammate. I hope you found this video tutorial helpful, and let me know if you want me to discuss the other features as well.
And there you have it. That's how simple it is to get started with Asana. Check out the link in the description below to create your account and get started with managing your projects.